So I just got a new job. Yeah, you see, the thing is that I used to be a baker, but I couldn't make enough dough. Sorry about that horrible joke, guys, but I had to do it because on this edition of Dragon Ball Dictionary, we're talking about the pun king himself, King Kai. And I'm also going to be breaking down some of those very memorable, infamous, horrible jokes that come up when Goku first meets King Kai. Let's get into it. Hey guys, Tony here. Subscribe, like, comment, blah, blah, blah. But I have a specific request for this video. Go ahead and write a pun, a bad joke down in the comments. I want horrible jokes down there. I love really bad jokes. So if you could go ahead and leave one, I would greatly appreciate it. And I'll pick my favorite within, let's just say, a few days, maybe a week of this video going out, and I'll pin it up at the top. And that will be crowned the King Pun, the ultimate pun, I guess. So, or ultimate joke. Doesn't have to be a pun. It could be a joke. So go ahead, leave it down there. I look forward to all your horrible jokes. Before we get into the puns, let's talk about King Kai's name. So King Kai is not the character's name. In the original Japanese, he's called Kaio. However, Kaio is not actually his name. Kaio is just a job title. So presumably, Kaio does have a name, but we don't know what that is. Now, let's break down Kaio. Kaio is made up of two characters. The first is Kai. Often people translate this as world, and that's not wrong. However, this is world in the sense of something more than just one specific world, one planet, like the world that we live in. This is more like a realm or a dimension. For example, in Dragon Ball Daima, the characters went to the Daima Kai or the Makai. That Kai is the same Kai in Kaio. In this case, Kai is translated as realm because the characters went to the demon realm. However, and this isn't an example from Dragon Ball, Hades or the underworld is known as the Mekai in Japanese. So in this case, the Kai is being translated as world if you go by the underworld translation. But again, that world is not one specific planet. It's more like a dominion, a realm, a dimension, some area. As for the second character, this is really straightforward. It's pronounced O with a long vowel. And it basically just means king, ruler, lord, or something along those lines. So there's a lot of possible translations for Kaio, including Lord of Worlds. I specifically use the plural there in world so that you don't get the impression that we're talking about one specific planet. Also, Lord of Realms, or Realm King, or Lord of the Dimension. Like, these are all possible, and you can argue all day about which is the best one because Kaio is a rather vague term. It's not an actual term that is used in daily conversation or anything like that. As far as I know, this is a term that Toriyama made up. As for King Kai, it's a somewhat weird localization because it makes it sound like Kai is King Kai's name, but as I just explained, that's not the case. That being said, Lord of Worlds or Lord of the Realms or something along those lines would be way too long to use in the dub. So it seems like this is just one of those localization situations where there isn't a perfect solution. You can't localize it to a really long term like Lord of the World because it won't fit with the mouth flaps. But King Kai is also weird because Kai is not his name. And if you leave it as Kaio, well, many people might assume that that's just his name. You don't get the impression that that means Lord of Worlds or King of the World or King of the Realm or anything like that. Because of that, I'm okay with Kaio being localized as King Kai. It's definitely not perfect, and it also obscures the connection between the Kaio-ken and the kaiō-sama, right? Because it's the same exact word there, Kaio and Kaio, but in the English it's King Kai and Kaio-ken, so yeah, not great, but as I said, I'm not sure that there's a perfect solution for this one. And by the way, you may have noticed that Goku calls Kaio kaiō-sama. That sama is just a name suffix. It's used to show respect, and it functions just like san, kun, or chan. わしは Okay, so now that you understand this not named job title of Kaio, we can talk about the puns. Just so you're aware, I'm only going to be talking about the Japanese language puns that appear the first time Goku encounters King Kai. There's 5 in total, but only 3 appear in the manga, but there's actually 5 that come up in the anime. So I'm going to be talking about all 5. Now, there are other puns that come up later in the story, and I believe almost all of them, if not all of them, are from filler. If you want me to cover those, let me know down in the comments, but I probably will only do it if this video does well. I think that explaining Japanese puns is not the most engaging content in the world. So I'm not sure if this video will do well, but if it does surprisingly well, I will come back to this topic and cover the rest of the puns. And if you really, really want me to do that, of course, please leave a comment. The first pun comes up right at the beginning of Goku and King Kai's first encounter. What happens is that Kaio introduces himself. However, rather than just saying, "Hi, I'm Kaio," and leaving it at that, well, of course, Kaio has to do a whole big joke. So it all begins with Kaio starting to scratch himself, and then he says, "Pori pori." Pori pori is the Japanese onomatopoeia for the sound of scratching. And then after that, he starts to say, "Kaio, Kaio." And then he finally introduces himself by saying, "I'm Kaio."
Kaio, Kaio.
Here is where the pun is, because the Japanese word for itchy is kaiui. So Kaio and kaiui sound vaguely, and I do mean vaguely, alike. This is a really, really bad pun, but that's exactly what makes it funny. So when Kaio whips this out, especially for anybody that was expecting, oh, a big deity martial artist and super cool or anything like that, no, this is just this round little funny guy that likes to make bad jokes. And the very first joke that he throws at us is a really, really bad one. So it should come as no surprise that I absolutely love this entire sequence. It's one subversion of expectations after another. I love bad puns, so that makes it even more enjoyable for me. But I'm not going to do a whole detailed breakdown. I'm just going to stick to the puns. So let's get to the next one. So after that first stinker of a pun, Goku doesn't laugh, and King Kai seems a bit perplexed at this, so he decides to give it another shot. And he whips out another bad pun. Now, this one actually is not as bad as the first one. The one that he uses in this scene is actually very, very well known. This is the kind of pun that probably any kid, even now, knows. So let's break this one down. What happens is that Kaio pretends to get a phone call. So he picks up this fake phone and says, "Daremo denwa ni denwa." Daremo denwa ni denwa. This means something along the lines of nobody's picking up the phone or there isn't anyone on the other side. So let's break this down. The pun here lies in the fact that daremo denwa ni denwa has 2 instances of the sound denwa. The first denwa means phone, and the second denwa is a combination of 2 things. The first is den, which is a shortened form of denai, and that is the negative form of the verb deru. As you can see on screen, deru can mean a whole bunch of things. But in this context, the negative and shortened form of deru basically means nobody's picking up, nobody's speaking. And then wa is a sentence final particle, it's just being used here for emphasis. Put these 2 components together and you get denwa, which sounds just like the Japanese word for phone, denwa. Hilarious. I know. I bet you can't stop laughing. Of course, Goku remains puzzled. This joke doesn't make him laugh, but then King Kai starts to show that he's becoming irritated with the fact that Goku doesn't get comedy. And so then Goku says, okay, bye, ha ha ha, right? He starts to laugh. And then he says, "I'm here to train with you." And King Kai says, "Fine, I'll train you if you can make me laugh." And that's when we get our next pun. So the pun that Goku comes up with is Futon ga futtonda. This means something like the futon blew away. A futon are those mattresses that people use in Japan that you place on the floor. Yes, it sounds like a futon, but a futon are those kind of couch sofa things that are used in the West sometimes. Yes, the word does come from futon, but it's not the same thing. Anyway, the pun here lies in the fact that Futon, the first word in this pun, sounds a lot like Futon in the last part of the word futonda. They're not exactly the same, but they are really similar. The difference is that futonda, the thing at the end, has a double consonant in the T part, right? In the futonda. And futonda is the past tense of the verb futobu. Futobu means something like blow away, as in the wind blowing away something. Just like the previous denwa ni denwa, this is not a funny joke, and also this is a very well-known pun. Again, this is the kind of pun that pretty much any kid, even today, would probably be aware of. But this joke, which again is not funny, it's super cliche, ends up being the one that makes King Kai laugh. And I absolutely love that because it's this really bad joke that ends up making the guy that thinks that he's really good at jokes laugh hysterically. But in the manga, this is the last pun that we get in this scene. In the anime, though, things keep going, and Goku has 2 more puns. The next pun that Goku whips out is neko ga nekoronda. So there's neko, which means cat. That comes up right at the beginning. Neko ga nekoronda. So nekoronda is the past tense of nekorobu, and that can mean to lie down. So put that in the past tense, and we get the cat lay down. And that's it. You may now laugh. And by the way, neko ga nekoronda, this is another one of those really, really well-known jokes that just about any kid in Japan probably knows. But we have one more. So this last pun is enpitsu ga mienpitsu. So the pun here lies in the fact that enpitsu pops up twice. Enpitsu ga mi enpitsu at the beginning and at the end. This sentence means something like I can't see the pencil. The first enpitsu means pencil, and the last enpitsu comes from a combination of 2 things. Mien, which is a shortened form of mienai, which means can't see, not visible. And then pitsu is a meaningless sound that was added at the end of the sentence in order to make this pun work. So in other words, they cheated. This isn't even a proper pun. It's not like they used real words that sound exactly the same. They just added a meaningless sound at the end of this sentence in order to duplicate the enpitsu sound at the beginning of the sentence. And so that's why I say that this is one of the worst ones, because it's not actually a pun. They just made it up. Also, unlike the previous 3 puns that I just covered, it doesn't seem like this one was particularly well known before it was used in Dragon Ball Z. In fact, there's the very real possibility that this pun was created specifically for the Dragon Ball Z anime by somebody at Toei. And that's it. That was the last pun in this scene. So congratulations, you made it through me breaking down 5 horrible Japanese puns. As a token of my appreciation for making it this far into the video, please accept this. Did you hear the one about the guy whose left side was cut off? Oh, don't worry though. He's all right now. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and don't forget to leave me your horrible puns and jokes down in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you enjoyed this video, I think you're going to enjoy the other videos in my Dragon Ball Dictionary series. So check out the playlist on screen now, and I'll see ya in the next one.